Groups of developers are just individual developers that are working together. It's not about adding tools, buying tools. Like, it's every time I'm on a new project, everyone's like, okay, what can we add? What can we buy? What can we use to make our developer team so much faster, so much better? And sometimes it's not about adding, it's about connecting the dots.
That's right.
We're not trying to create the next big thing that you're gonna give up all your other tools to use.
Hey, look, talk to the people you're building for, right? That's the problem, is you don't realize you should have saved something until you realize you didn't save it. And that's the number one thing we're solving for.
Yes.
Can save, but can pieces save for you? Can it save the right things and give those things to you when you need them?
It was so wild to just be trying to do a job for my role of pieces, and I'm not a developer, but like doing a little bit of like lightweight development tool, and then all of a sudden I get to use pieces. Like, it was such a wild experience for that. I didn't even think about it, and I was like, oh yeah, use pieces, of course.
Well, it's stressful, and like the volume of everything's going up. Code bases are ballooning, right? Because of the automation, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, it used to take 6 months to kind of write a feature. Now it's going to take 3.
What I like about the development team here is that they're developers.
Yeah.
So every time,
hardcore.
And so when we hear a problem, the developers feel it because they're experiencing it or they understand it, and so they're so eager to solve the problems that we're hearing. I went with Mac, our product head, and he was like, okay, I'll do the demo and you could talk. And I was like, well, what if I did a demo and you could maybe talk? And he was like, that's savage. And I was like, I know, but it was a good challenge because it shows how easy it is to pick up what Pieces is trying to do.
We are the people behind Pieces because we care about these problems that are overlooked, but are so frustrating, right, as a developer.
The ideal product development process, this story always comes back to, people said they wanted a faster horse, and then Ford built a car. Right. And so this is exactly what we're doing.
Let's unpack some of this stuff. We'll get more into, what is Pieces, what are we building, how's it going, regarding product-led growth, and kind of moving into that land and expand teams and enterprise motion. But let's start out with, kind of the product arc from your eyes as you saw it in January and as you start to see it now and as you think about it in 2024.
The product has changed quite a bit, hasn't it?
Right.
Even since I joined, it was more of a snippet manager. We're a great place to save things, and now we've become more integrated. We have more tools that people are using that you can use Pieces within, and now we have a co-pilot, and that's been a big focus of the second half of the year, making sure that we're providing contextualized, personalized assistance to people wherever they are in their workflow, and that's a whole different way of talking about our product and way of disseminating our messaging to individual developers as the product evolves.
Yeah, I think like it was interesting because we looked at these kind of ICP, ideal customer profiles, and there are the savers and the non-savers, right? People that think hey, I have enough battle scars to know I should probably save this config file or this boilerplate or just take a note here in my workflow because six months from now when that framework upgrade comes around, like you're gonna need it, right? And they're kind of like these intermediate senior level devs that really understand the value of capturing things both for themselves or onboarding or just information to have. And the problem has always been like junior level devs, like maybe they don't have that muscle built yet to like save and organize and do all that, but also too they're trying to move and learn so fast, right? Not onboard into a big project. And I think like we kind of inherently downplayed what we were doing around okay, sure, you can save things, but what about that workflow context? And you kind of noted towards it there regarding the integrations and it being wherever you are, but also that means that we have a lot of workflow context and a lot of like metadata that's helpful for later on. Mm-hmm. So when we get into the co-pilots, those co-pilots kind of know the context, right? It's not coming out of left field. That's been really hard to articulate. Hey, it's something so simple, but something very sophisticated, in a PLG kind of motion.
Yeah, and something I'll say is, the best part of my job is getting to talk to individual users and hopping on the phone with them, understanding how they use Pieces within their specific workflow. Yeah. Because, we have a lot of web developers, a lot of back-end developers, people that just use Pieces in their unit testing process. Yeah. And so every time I talk to a customer, there's a new way that they're using Pieces.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. New way, new tools, very, very dynamic. And Rosie, I mean, you were working on a project in integration the other day. Like, I mean, I walked over to your desk and, you had the 50 tabs open.
Yes.
You were looking at like a low-code Zapier integration. You were
Yep.
looking at some GitHub Action stuff, and you were looking at other repositories. It was like, hey, like you were just getting into it, doing some more technical stuff, and I was like, yeah, save that right there. Like capture that website, capture that config, like capture all that, because you're gonna go through those micro iterations, right? And then when you pull in Nathan, and you're like, hey, Nathan, like, I need some help on this. He's like, all right, where's the docs?
Let me see
Okay,
it.
where did you find this? Like, what's the config? Let's take a look at that. What repo are you trying to add it to? All that other stuff. And you would have had to laboriously kind of like document your work in progress journey.
Yeah.
But it's just a single click, captured all of that. Now it's in pieces.
It was so wild to just be trying to do a job for my role of pieces, and I'm not a developer, but like doing a little bit of like lightweight development tool, and then all of a sudden I get to use pieces. Like it was such a wild experience for that. I didn't even think about it, and I was like, oh yeah, use pieces, of course.
Right. So to that note, right, like kind of getting into it, that's the problem, is you don't realize you should have saved something until you realize you didn't save it, and that's the number one thing we're solving for.
Yes.
So you can kind of see it early on this year with like pieces we'll save for you, kind of in a early MVP capacity around suggest and save, but doing this without integrations across the entire operating system of Mac OS, Linux, and Windows, real time, offline, and just capturing those kind of like things that you're interacting with a lot automatically, and then giving them back to you when you need it. That's really the second, massive component is, of course, you can save, but can pieces save for you? And can it save the right things and give those things to you when you need them? So
it's really quite exciting to see how Pieces is building its abilities. Like when I only joined Pieces like a couple weeks ago, but I've known about
taking off,
really
yeah.
jumping in. But when I heard about Pieces a couple months ago, and starts being involved in the startup community around here and hearing about it, I was like, oh cool, like saving pieces of code. That's really interesting. And then by the time I joined, the Copilot was really starting to take off.
Oh yeah.
And the Copilot built off those pieces that you saved and built off all that context that you are saving as a developer. And then now we have this ability we know what you want to know, we hear what you're talking about, so let's just serve it up for you. And just like building this product based on what the users are actually doing is just gonna be so successful. Developers are so interactive. They want to tell you what's going on. They're so excited to try everything new and research and hear it. So it's just it's a pleasure to build for them.
And you did your first demo the other day too, in front of like a crowd of like 40, 45 or so people. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, you put your own twist on it a bit, and the crowd was pretty receptive. But how'd that go?
It was great. It was really fun. I kind of set that challenge to myself. We were going to do a demo for the startup community here in Cincinnati, and I went with Mac, our product head, and he was like, okay, I'll do the demo and you could talk. And I was like, well, what if I did a demo and you can maybe talk? And he was like, that's savage. And I was like, I know, but it was a good challenge because it shows how easy it is to pick up what Pieces is trying to do. Like I had no problem understanding it because it's obvious. And then going through a workflow was like, it's easy. You start in the browser and you show everybody, hey, I'm in the browser and look, there's a piece of code I want to save. Boom, done. And let's go look at Pieces, and there it is. And here's the code. I want to ask the Copilot about it. I want to set some context. It all flowed so easily that I had no problem explaining it. And people were so receptive. Everyone was it's a great community here anyways, but them like seeing it and asking really solid questions and trying to figure out how we did it. That was really fun. And then people came up to me after the demo and were like, man, I just save things in a Slack message to myself, I just save things in notes. And this is such a great idea. And actually my favorite part of the demo is that a different startup was showing something, and it was a pretty developer heavy demo. And he saved things to Pieces as he was demoing.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was, and we were like, hey, shout out to Pieces over here.
Yeah,
so it's permeating like the whole community here, and it's just so exciting.
I mean, I've heard developers even tell me they create a PDF for each code and they'll name it, and put it in their documents. And so, taking these use cases and also translating them into benefits is something that is a big part of our job as well. It sort of started out as staying organized, sort of managing the chaos in your workflow as a lot of materials are coming at you as a developer. And then it sort of turned into, generating contextualized code that's tailored for your project. Recently I was talking to a user who was an instructor, a course instructor who does boot camps And he found that Pieces was actually uniquely positioned to be very good at explaining code. So, right-clicking on an entire repository and being able to understand it.
Like, what
or
does this do?
going, line by line, like, hey, what does this exact, class do?
This year really took off, right? And it hit a couple of markets like really hard, but one of those is specifically the developer tools market, right? It's starting to get into the design market a little bit, but it was basically everything that touched technical language or natural language was massively transformed, right? So the way you do SEO, the way you write code, the way you do all this. And we're seeing that from, the giants of like, Google, they're getting into an IDE this year, right? IDX.dev. Why? Because they know that the way developers are going to be working is fundamentally shifting.
Yes.
And they want to try and, shoot their shot, right? That's their time to like maybe catch up and do something so, step function in nature that they can compete against JetBrains or VS Code or, the like. But all that said, the developer workflow is getting more chaotic, right?
Yes.
You've got these, so many tools. And if you go to every single one of those tool sites, it's like code 50% faster,
Yes.
right? Like do PRs 50% faster, like, integrate with your team, build a website 50% faster, whatever else.
Yes.
And my thesis is that is nothing short of chaos for both the individual developers, the PMs, the product lifecycle, everything.
How do you decide what tool to put out there for your team if there's 50 million of them and like everyone has a different opinion about them?
Oh, yeah.
And all your developers are like, no, I like this one. No, I like this one. This is faster. This is better. That's very stressful.
Well, it's stressful, and like the volume of everything is going up. Code bases are ballooning, right? Because of the automation, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, it used to take 6 months to kind of write a feature. Now it's going to take 3, right? Maybe. However, if they balloon and balloon and balloon, and now the other thing is like developers are able to be more cross-functional. So they not only can write more code within one language, they can jump from Rust to C++ to TypeScript within a week and be a lot more cross-functional. However, all of those locations have their own frameworks, have their own documentation, have their own core team and repositories. So that workflow chaos, in my thesis, is it's exploding. It's going insane. Right. And so we want to say, how do we continue to, in a profound way, capture that chaos, bottle it, stack rank it, give you what you need when you need it, and kind of like serve that back to you.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it'll affect the individual developer the most right now, and then it'll start to affect the teams even heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that I love about Pieces is that we're not siloed like many other tools. We're not trying to create the next big thing that you're gonna give up all your other tools to use.
Yes.
ClickUp comes to mind.
Yeah,
They say the one tool to rule them all.
Yes.
Definitely.
No, we're trying to be the tool in between tools, the
Yes.
one that connects all the existing softwares that you have, because that's not gonna stop. The market, the way it's going, there's going to be new tools, new frameworks, new languages, like you mentioned. And so just being able to make those the context switching become a little bit more manageable.
And in enterprises, you don't get to pick your tools most of the time in these teams. And you might be working on multiple groups at once, multiple projects, multiple teams.
Yep.
Even within organizations, they might be using different tools for different programs. And if you are working across those, and you have to use them, so how do we help smooth out that whole process for you?
Yeah, it's a whole thing. I mean, the enterprise, that's another good narrative that we'll be hitting on regarding like kind of your role and Cole's role is as they are adopting these large language models, how can they maximize the usage out of them, right? So if you are, Goldman Sachs or something, right? And I think I read about them having the GPT-4 enterprise license.
Yeah.
So now every person in Goldman Sachs has a Chrome tab or something with GPT-4 for Goldman Sachs, a private LLM behind the scenes. And that CTO, that CSO, that CIO, they have those API keys that basically are gating that large language model.
Yeah.
So for us, we're like, okay, that's underutilized. If you have this whole amazing system that you're paying probably $30-$40 a month for, per user, and it's in a single tab in your browser. Mm-hmm. So we're like, how do we basically go to that CTO and say, take that open API key for your enterprise license, bring it into Pieces, right, through SSO. Now, every developer in your company has that large language model in the browser, in the IDE, in the collaborative environment, in the desktop app, and it's contextualized with the context that Pieces aggregates before it asks a prompt, before it asks a question. So you just took your utilization from like a single location in the browser and just proliferated it everywhere so fast.
Yes.
And that's a really big win for us. And we've been really focused on bring your own model. Same for like the GitHub fine tuning. That'll be a whole story where GitHub Universe this year, they were like, fine tune on your repository. and the LLM will understand your organization. You sign into Pieces with GitHub. We're going to use that LLM right there, and now Pieces is going to be able to give the GitHub LLM all that context, right? So that bring your own model thesis, I think it's going to be a big win narrative-wise for the stuff you're doing, Cole, and then also the stuff you're doing, Rosie, for the customer side.
So we have 44,000 users at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. And they're engaged, they're excited for the most part. We have a lot of conversations with the users. They tell us when they have problems, and we manage them almost like kind of white glove service right now because we can. But if we want to have 9 billion people using Pieces, we have to think about a good way to support every action that they're doing. And they have a problem, they have a suggestion, they have any sort of feedback. We want to make sure that everybody is heard. So
That's right.
the first thing I thought when I walked into this group is, we need a support process.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to target first, because I think that being able to engage with your users and fix their problems and let them know that they're heard is so important. And I think we do a good job of it now, but scalability wise, we have to scale it up. So that's going to be my major focus for the next couple months, because I really want us to give this tailored approach to support, just like we do to our product.
And community too. Community builds on support. Like we are, the support community right now.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's beyond like, hey, I have an issue. Can I get this fixed, or we ship something broken or something like that. But it's also like, here's a clever way that I'm using Pieces that I want to share to everyone else. Like a pro tip of like use cases. And Cole, I know you do a lot of that right now with user stories.
Yeah, that's sort of how my work overlaps into support is, one, making sure that documentation is robust, like having places on our website that users can go to naturally as they need problems, servicing the right things at the right time as it goes. But, making sure that we're talking to users and understanding, the way that they use Pieces and relaying that back to the team. I mean, our engineers are super receptive. So anytime anyone has some insights as we're talking to users, we'll ping that in our group chat and make sure that everyone's on the same page as we manage our priorities.
What I like about the development team here is that they're developers.
Yeah, yeah.
So every time,
hardcore.
Right, so when we hear a problem, and the developers feel it because they're experiencing it or they understand it, and so they're so eager to solve the problems that we're hearing, and that spirit I think is going to take us very far. Mm-hmm. And that's never going to go away because we're building for ourselves and for people like us.
That's right. And I would say, this is a little bit further out, but we understand the entire digital software supply chain, right? From ideation to development to design to iteration to shipping, the whole 9 yards. And we do understand that Pieces for developers is phase 1, product 1, market 1, right? Yeah. Like we are looking at the small things that developers and designers use together, right? And that'll be a big kind of product arc into 2024 and beyond. But I mean, you're totally right. Like we feel the pain when something comes in and we're like, I actually had the same thing like 2 days ago. We're going to get this fixed. We're going to get this shipped. Like we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And Cole, I mean, you directly talk to probably the most amount of customers, ones that are happy and ones that are not, and so, I mean, you're starting to see like just the variety of developer persona out there and the tasks that they're having to do from like low code to high code to like front end to back end, DoD, air gapped to like banks to like very kind of flexible companies like startups.
And that's sort of goes back to what I was talking about the types of assets that we put on our website, right? So making sure that we're working with content partners or writing in-house things that, each type of persona might be interested in. Yeah. We talk a lot about offline AI. That's something that we make sure we process all your data on device and we use local LLMs, and people are excited about that. So, talking about it, how it might impact different industries and, connecting those dots for people is something that gets people interested. It gets them on, into our Discord and talking to us even more. So.
We had an interesting support ticket just happened this morning where someone was like, he had some issues with installing, and we solved that problem for him. Yeah. But after that, he was like, okay, so I have this is great, but like, first off, do you have a plugin for Notion? Because I use Notion a lot. And secondly, how do I like get into the process of becoming a snippeter? He's like, it's not really my workflow. And we're like, okay, first off, great idea about Notion. It's not our next thing to do. We'll put it on the list. But also, we recently open sourced some of our plugins, so he could be part of that. I told him to join our Discord community. If you're interested in helping us open source this type of thing, please let us join us. And that was really fun. And then, talking through some of our own use cases, like this is how we snippetize or use the snippets. And him understanding that helps him become a good pieces user.
Yeah, and I don't know what level of engineer he was. If he was a junior, if he was someone learning, or if he's intermediate or whatever. Did you get a sense of how deep in the stack he was?
No, I asked him for a call so we could talk a little bit more.
Yeah, it's just like you just kind of feel it, like it's like what we're talking about is like a muscle that we build, and like we have, one of the reasons that our org is like so excellent is we have like a lot of 10x engineers, like across the board, AI, infrastructure, like you name it. Really on the back end side too, but the front end is world class, desktop apps world class. We do it across Mac OS, Linux, whatever, you get it. Our developers, the way that we work, both as a team and as individuals, we're trying to get that formula into this tiny little brain of a system called Pieces OS and give it to every developer out, right? And that feeling that I'm talking about, hey, I just have a spidey sense that I'm going to need this later, or I'm going to have to give this to someone else, or I'm going to have to come back tomorrow after force quitting all my tabs and pick up, on the second day. That's that feeling that we're building in to the pattern engine, right? To the shadow saving, to the kind of like fully horizontal, workflow kind of process. And that's going to be world class. So our goal is to not have those types of questions
doesn't
anymore.
Even have to think
it's
about
just
that.
like, hey, turn it on, let it run, and you'll let it surprise you.
I think we spend a lot of time on making our application and our extensions really world class, great UI.
Right.
We need to do the same with our website.
That's right.
We need to be able to showcase these demo videos that we're having, or user stories and things that connect with the community, so that when they go onto our website, they can easily understand, okay, this is what Pieces is going to do for me.
Yes.
And I get it faster.
And cool ways to use it, and ways to adjust. Like our documentation has been pretty solid. And
docs.pieces.app.
Yeah, exactly. And then that could be the landing page, because you keep talking about all the time how developers love documentation. They want to go read it. They don't want to ask the question. They want to go find it themselves. And if we can keep that going, build it up to date, have a good library for them, I think that's very key.
I will say this, this is pretty funny, but like developer culture, around asking someone else is like pretty interesting, because you don't want to bother anyone else. You don't want to take their time. Like you already know they're plugged in. You don't want to break their flow, because you know how annoyed you are when someone breaks yours, right? And then second and foremost is like, you kind of have this like bravery, as a developer. You're like, man, I got to solve hard problems. And like when you show up to the eng meeting or whatever, like maybe sometimes you're like a little nervous to say something dumb or whatever. And I feel like this is in like all STEM, math and science. Like it's just like something interesting. There's some low level psychology, but certainly for developers. And so they just don't want to take the time for a multitude of reasons to reach out. They want what they need information wise right there. And they want it to be well organized, like available, etc. We're going to do that for support. The documentation's pretty great. You can tell we're like a very developer centric company, because we're not the best at keeping up with the marketing, right? And that's, both of y'all, and we're going to start working on that team side there, just really bolstering growth, because we do have a product that is world class. And we can authentically say, this is what you will get out of it. This is where we're going, and we will absolutely execute, And so I think this is one of those times that you're like not selling something that doesn't exist yet. It's actually the opposite. You're like, how do you unpack this?
There's so much that works in Pieces right now, and when you go in, you're like, oh my gosh, like there's so much and this is all going to help me. But if we can get really solid at surfacing what they need at the right time, then they don't have to go looking for it. It's just there. And we have all the foundational building blocks for that, so all we have to do is keep going.
We had this awesome video, the Gen 2 that was like, 6 months ago. And that was like initially like the Copilot, which was not persisted, but it was like, right ahead of Microsoft 365 Copilot announcement. Like all right, beat them to the punch by a quarter. But now our Copilot's even a whole other level. It's like bring your own model, persisted chats, like complete grounded, integrated everywhere.
Right.
And then next year, the whole thing's going to change again with the, the suggestive stuff.
I'm having all of these conversations back and forth. There are a lot of people that come to me and say, hey, I want to be a brand ambassador for Pieces. I want to go and do something for you guys. And so, that makes it easy a lot of times, because we're trying to be close to the community, and we're supporting these people that come to us and say, hey, I want to write an article for you, or I want to join the open source team and build something.
The stoke is high in the community, and that's it's so cool to see.
And there's no shortage of engineering pipeline for us either, because like, we're like, people from the, the BARD team, people from, all the big companies, all the small companies. I mean, they want to work here, like, because it's like, it's so independent of what type of developer you are.
Yeah.
The unifying frustration is that you're in the browser, you're in the IDE, and you're in that collaborative space like GChat or Slack, and it's frustrating. It's just so much all the time, nonstop. You're just like, I need Zen. I need something to help me with this chaos. Yeah.
And I think what you're the way you're talking about it is so indicative of what this culture here is. Like, it's easy to come in and lead a customer team here because you need a huge degree of empathy for your user when you're trying to represent a customer. And if I know that if I come in and say, they are struggling here, everyone here at this team is going to be like, yes, we need to fix that for them, because the care and the want to solve problems for the people is so important here.
Oh yeah, and we've been through the process, like I said, just like figuring out like what are those pain points that are like just a step function, right, when you solve them. And it's not easy. That's why our product has seemed so simple for so long. It's like, okay, snippet manager, cool, we get it. But the amount of like low level machine learning that's going on under the hood in less than 100 milliseconds on device to tag things, title things, enrich them with related links, related people, convert, screenshots and videos to full blown like code samples. That was just so invisible, and now it's like proliferating up to the the co-pilots and to the feed and the leg. I'm trying not to talk about the feed too much, but you know what's up. It's going to be insane, right? And those little bits of context that have been always hidden behind the snippet or paired with a snippet, those are going to be flattened and surfaced now. Yeah. And that's really what people are interested in.
The ideal product development process, the story always comes back to, people said they wanted a faster horse, and then Ford built a car. Right. And so this is exactly what we're doing. That's right. It's like who would have thought, I needed edge machine learning to save around my like pieces of code that I wanted to save. No one was really asking for that. They didn't know that they needed to ask for these type of annotations. And then we gave it to them, and they're like, this is making my life so much better.
I'm never taking manual notes again. It's hilarious.
And then they have this list, and they're like, okay, great, this list is awesome. I'm happy. I'm using this. I'm copying and pasting it. And then we're like, okay, let me surface this in your Copilot. And like, I didn't even know I needed that. And it's just going to grow from there.
In 2020, right, the whole local model stuff, everyone's like, why is it air gapped? Why is it offline? Like, why are you so, obsessed with like privacy and security and stuff like that? It's because we can walk into the DoD, turn the Wi-Fi off, and do a demo, right? Like, that's how it goes, right? We're doing the team stuff. There's a lot of like permissioning of like who gets access to what information in this generative world. It's really hard to figure out, because it's not like, I go in and say, these people have access to this stuff, especially when things are shadow saved, right, all the time. And so that's the nuance there, and we're going to get there. But Apple in 2020, they said, we don't know who or why or what is going to need an M1 chip with like integrated, kind of matrix multiplication, optimized firmware, encoding, NeuroCore, whatever, the Apple branding is. But they're like, we're going to do it. Yeah. And they did the M1, and then they did the M2, and they did the M1 Max, and they just said, we're going to stick your client. And now you saw this with the NPUs, you see this with the T100s from NVIDIA, you see this with the Tensor chips inside of the Pixels. And so we were like, it's a no-brainer. So we started not saying, okay, given unlimited compute, unlimited memory, unlimited cost, let's go build an LLM. Let's build super smart kind of brain lobes and put them on your device, right? So we have these LLMs and these transformers and these other types of, ML architectures that do specific tasks very quick. And when you compose them all together, you get these types of like agent-like behaviors.
Yes.
And that's what people didn't see, way early in the day.
It's just the small little experiences that you have that are more enjoyable now.
That's right.
OCR, that's something that no one thought about. It's OCR, I might have to fix a semicolon. But with pieces, we have on-device machine learning models that are auto-correcting that stuff.
Yeah, and they run so fast that you can now do it every frame in a video, to pull and discover all the valuable code out of the video along with the transcript, and then boom, snippet discovery or Copilot context. I mean, in Q1, like I think this goes out first week of January, the video OCR is in ML Facade. It is PR'd. We are in main now. But basically it's like, hey, Copilot, watch this tutorial on YouTube. And it'll pull out all the snippets. It'll know exactly what that instructor is talking about, all the links, all the resources, etc. And then guess what you're going to do? Right in the Copilot chat, like save, whatever, or of course the whole chat is saved. But it's insane that generate, curate, kind of iterate flow that's going on, and then the context that the Copilot has. And you're like, how is that even possible? Well, we started with a super simple OCR model that does one thing really, really well, really, really fast. And then now we can scale it up, for a whole frame, 20-minute video.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so people are going to be like, well, how did I live about this?
It's wild.
Imagine being a developer and you're working 10, 12 hours a day. You don't have time to watch a 30, 45
No.
minutes.
Absolutely not.
No.
Just being able to run it through pieces and
Right.
just, get the summary and understand it and make it fit to your, specific project. I think that's pretty cool.
I think Elon, and not to quote others, but I think Elon said this one time, which is when you have to talk and listen, your information transfer rate is like 10 times less than when you have to read information, or I guess when you have to write information, it's a little bit, it's like you got to do the typing and stuff like that. But the generative stuff will kind of get that information transfer rate up to the same level of reading.
Yeah.
But when you're talking and listening to a 40-minute video, the reason it's 40 minutes is because the guy's narrating, right? The guy is going, through it, or a guy or gal or whatever, but it's just it's a whole thing, and so if we can just say, hey, Copilot, watch this 20-minute video, 3 minutes later, the context is ready, it's watched the entire thing, it listened to the whole audio, it's good to go. It's gonna be a whole game changer, just like that.
That's pretty insane.
I know.
It's absolutely insane.
Nuts.
Yeah, absolutely wild.
I think it's just going to be a case of just more people using it, more people getting excited, and finding new ways to tell us the way they're using it. You're going to see pieces and things bigger than or other IDEs. You're going to see the open source community starting to pop off. I think that's going to be one of our biggest, not only idea generators, but community gathering. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see what people can do with pieces, because we're a team of 20 people. Think about thousands of people adding to pieces. I think that's going to be so cool.
That's a lot of trash.
It's going to,
A lot of triage,
It might be a little chaotic at first, but I think you're going to start to see the cream rise. And you're going to start to see some really important contributors.
Oh, yeah.
And see some, all the use cases that we haven't thought of and don't have time to address. I think we're going to start seeing that pop off, and I think that's really cool.
We just sponsored a really awesome Python pieces CLI.
Yeah.
It's like an agent for your command line.
Yeah.
And that's going to be completely open source. Every single commit, every single release, everything like that, from 0 to 100 on Pieces OS APIs, and that's going to be wild.
Yeah.
The CLI community is insane. The Python community is insane, and it's going to be insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just excited for a little website for you guys.
Yes. Can't wait for that.
We've got a great videographer with us, and we're able to make some better video content that showcases the product.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. Just telling our story in a more robust and concise way with some beautiful animations on our website. All developers love a nice front end.
They do. Unless you're a CLI user. If you're a Vim user, then you don't care about, if you're Vim, you're like, I don't care. I don't need front end,
Yeah.
But
I'm really excited to start getting in with the users for real, because like I said, only been here 3 weeks. Tried to talk to as many users as I can in the last couple of weeks, but I'm excited to actually just start talking to people and hearing how they're doing, and get that deep empathy and get the growth from there and see what they need.
it's also hard to talk to developers, right? They're so protective over their time.
Yep.
They're so particular. They're very opinionated, and they're engineers, right? They think about things when they look at software. They don't just see, that does that when I click that button. They think that must be going on. I'm interested about how that works.
They're asking why.
Right, they're asking why and how. And so talking to developers is just world class. For anyone who comes into our BD team, anyone who comes into the developer advocacy team, customer success team, all that stuff.
If I could just say to the developer community, if you're watching this video, join our Discord.
Yes,
absolutely.
Hang out with the open source
Yeah.
community and reach out to us. We're there to chat. We're there to learn from you and build what you need to do to make great software.
Yeah.
Absolutely.